Hi, I'm Halimah Polk. I'm a longtime Subud member living in South Florida, Delray Beach to be exact. And I'd like to invite you to a Zoomuse reading on February 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and at 11 o'clock West Coast time and times in between. And that's it. Before I start, I wanted to give a kind of a spoiler alert, which was these poems were written in the 90s when I had gone through a series of very, very traumatic events. So they can be a little bit upsetting or maybe even dark, but they were helpful to me to talk about these things. Very helpful and very therapeutic. So I just wanted to give you an alert. Now the first poem I'm going to read is called Buried Alive, which is actually something that happened in my childhood, which was fun. So it's not dark, not dark. So should I read it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. One summer when I was a little girl, my mother and I traveled to Cape Cod. There on the beach, I played with the older girls for hours, letting them bury me right up to the neck in the warm sand. They poured and patted white sand all over my small body until all you could see was a miniature mountain with a tiny dark head protruding. With all the girls watching and laughing, I would spend a few minutes straining mightily against the warm fortress, forcing the small cracks in the sand structure into large open chasms until the edifice crumbled. Once free, I would run around whooping for joy, and then abruptly lie down and beg to be rewombed once again. What a comfort to feel those warm patting hands and the weight of sand pressing on every part of my child's body. And what a thrill to kick off its weight and break free. Sometimes, even now, I long to roll around in the dirt, bare naked, round and soft, still longing for the reassurance of the warm, dark earth, still longing for the feeling of a mother, and still longing to break free. This poem takes place when I was living in San Diego around the time of my divorce. And it's called The Ladies at Trinity Church. And around the corner from me was a small, very sweet Episcopal church. And I would walk over there. It seems odd that I, an Islamic woman, find myself this sun-drenched Wednesday morning drawn here to this very Christian, crucifix-filled, stained glass church, prostrating myself in prayer as I await the wafer and the wine, surrounded by a bevy of gray-haired pious old ladies, beaming at me benevolently with their sweet, wrinkled faces. The gentleness of the Christ, that Lamb of God, is the consolation I crave now. I need to cry freely, tears streaming down my cheeks and running like little torrents down my arms into the blue carpeted ground of this holy place. I need the prayers of that cherubic-faced minister and the touch of those dry, wrinkled hands as the old lady surreptitiously slipped mouths of Kleenex into my damp lap. Somehow the gleaming sword of Islamic justice and righteousness cannot comfort this young and very broken heart of mine, cannot console my bereft body that only 2 weeks ago nestled so sweetly in your perfidious arms.
What prompted you to write these poems?
I was just in agony during this time, and actually they would lines would come to me in my Latihan. So opening lines might come in a Latihan or an image. And somehow they seem to be helpful. And then there's a poem, which I will read, where I actually, you can see that I was going to transition into watercolor, from poetry into watercolor. You can see it. I mean, when I look back and see that what was written, I think, oh my gosh, there it is. And then I have written one or two of these poems later on in the 2000s, but and occasionally, it's interesting that you asked that question, because occasionally I will get another line, and one line in Latihan, and that'll start me off, or I'll think about that. I
So
mean, in a way, that time, which was so excruciatingly painful because there was so much drama wrapped around it, I was more creative than I'd ever been. I mean, I guess I had to go really deep to find a quiet inside and the kind of imagery and creativity that would sustain me. So it was just really interesting, because in a more ordinary existence that I live now, where it's kind of quiet, and well, we do have the COVID, but anyway, I don't feel that inspired. Which is sort of like, I felt during that time, I was just clinging to these words, and they made me feel better.
do they bring back the memories of that time to you?
They do. But it's this kind of the depth of feeling that I had at that time, which was, painful, but it was really surrounded by some kind of grace. So it's kind of two things coming back. I was sort of an expanded version of myself during that time. Not because of anything I did, just because there was a lot of grace being given at the moment, just to get me through. Like little life rafts, these poems. You know what I mean? Yeah. Around the time, and one of the receivings I had was that it was very important for me to go through, this was the line, go through the center of this grief. Not to obscure it, not to run away from it, not to rationalize it. Just, these were horrible feelings and I was feeling them. And that going through the center would, and it would allow me to become more human. More compassionate towards other people and also towards myself. So it was like, but it was a process, and I'm still going through that process. Well, we're all going through the process of becoming more and more human, aren't we? So those were two of my poems. And I'm going to be reading these poems in a Zoomuse reading on February 5th at 2:00 East Coast time. And I hope you'll join me for that reading. And I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.